Alright, so I've got this cleaned up a bit. It doesn't look like it's cleaned up substantially from last time I started this video, but I do have it cleaned up a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is position this gear over this part of the drive axle and super glue that down in place. I'll try not to get super glue into the teeth or anywhere else. Now I suspect that at some point in time it's positioned in a way to where your wheels aren't canted too far in or too far out, otherwise the car is probably going to move at an angle versus straight on. Again, the purpose of this repair is one, to show you how to do some things from your home, and two, really just to make my kid happy again. So if it doesn't drive straight, which it's not going to drive really well anyways because it doesn't have tires, but at least the wheels will now rotate. But if I still had rubber, I could put it there. If I had the rubber wheels to put back on here, I could do that, and this car would be fully functional again. So I got that. The glue's already starting to set up. Got a little bit hard to move on. I'm going to found out that this gear actually slides out, and this little metal rod here is just to keep that gear in place, and so that way it stays free spinning. Let me do a couple things first. I want to make sure that it's lubricated well. What I have is it's almost like a gear oil, but it's green. I was doing I had an edger for my yard, and I blew out a bearing in it many years ago, just being too rough with it. So I bought a new bearing. I bought these parts to replace the edger, and I no longer have the edger anymore because the motor, I pretty much tore up the motor. It was the point of throwing it away. And this this will serve as a lubrication for this. It should work pretty well. It's rather old. It's broken down in pieces and gotten out somewhere, so it's definitely that's why I keep it in a Ziploc bag. But for small things around the house like this right here that don't need a substantial amount of effort, it will work well and keep things well lubricated. So I'm going to put this on the back side here, feed that back in. That's going to decrease the amount of wear on the back side of this. I'll additionally throw some of this grease. I keep calling it an oil lubricant, but it's a grease. I'm going to put some of it down into the splines on these gears here, and in between here as well. Just that way, as the plastic on plastic, as those teeth move together, there's going to be wear, but that will help decrease the wear as they go into each other and move along. And hopefully this toy will last a little bit longer, long term. What I can do at this point is just rotate everything as best as possible, and that will get this this grease into the right areas. And it's not perfectly cleaned, you know. Do need to fit everything back together. I'll put that screw back in on this side. I'm going to be a little bit harder now I can't really move the axle up and down. Also don't want to over tighten the screw because I mean it is fed through plastic. I'm pretty sure the first time that screw was put in was when the plastic was actually deformed to be able to allow for a screw to go in and out. Probably created the grooves at that point. They probably weren't pre-made. Again, could be wrong. Just my guess. Feed this back into place. You got some tabs here that one's almost broke. But actually feed under before it goes over. There we go. Sitting in its spot now. And go ahead and get that screwed in. Okay. Now, what I also did off camera is I went ahead and retinned these wires here a little bit. We'll solder them back on where they originally were. Red lead to the front side, white lead to the back. Take a second for my soldering iron to warm back up. Again, a good way to know what temperature to set your soldering iron to is to, you can do it in increments, right? This is relatively a thick solder. I don't have the fine diameter solder. It's not really the best for this job as far as the diameter of the solder I have here. It might be 0.062 in diameter, pound worth of lead and tin. Definitely wash my hands afterwards. But what you can do is you can set your soldering iron to, like, say 300, 400, 500 degrees. You can look up at what temperature that solder melts, and then depending on the application, if it's not the solder's not melting relatively quickly, then you can increase the temperature by, I don't know, 10 to 20 degrees at a time till you get to a temp that works relatively decently. Although I would not encourage you just to arbitrarily turn your solder on to its highest setting. I need to clean that gear oil off. Grease, lubrication, whatever. What did I do with my paper towel? There it goes. And start soldering away because, I can damage your equipment too. Okay, so those are reattached. And of course this is a DC motor, so if I have my polarity wrong, well, when I press the button, the car is just going to go in reverse versus forward. And I'll just have to resolder everything in the right direction. Hopefully I put that together the right way. Now I'm starting to second guess myself a little bit because this lead was a lot longer than that lead. I should go back in the video and look real quick. So I went back and looked, and yes, this was the right way. So we will start reassembling the entire thing together. I'll pop these batteries out real quick so I'm not arbitrarily turning it on while I'm reassembling it. And something I could do is I could sit down and take the time to redo the wiring to the main board, to the buttons, actually turn this into an on-off switch. So when it's in one position, just to save on battery life. But again, kid's toy, doesn't really matter. Only if you care about having to buy batteries for your kid's toy ever so often. Or maybe you just sometimes you want the batteries just to die, so you don't hear the toy anymore. I think some of you might know exactly what I'm talking about. Flash for a second. I guess those capacitors were still charged a little bit. Alright, so that bottom piece is in. I think the back piece had to fall in place on that side, and then everything could press together. There we go. So that here is not in the right spot. There we go. Alright. I should be able to put the screws back in now. And other than putting the batteries back in and the cover back on, this should be done. Well, you heard it. Yeah, there we go. Appears that that noise switch actually interrupts the motor and the speaker, but not the lights. That button probably had something to do. It doesn't appear to be working anymore. But we'll call this good enough for now. I could take that back apart. There's probably something I missed, probably something else that's broke. But for the most part, this toy was working as it did 2 years ago, minus all the cosmetic damage, and I'm pretty sure my son's going to be relatively excited to have this back to play with. Alright, goodbye folks.